Jerusalem is boiling. The air is full of the scent of juniper and spices, mixed with the smell of sweat of thousands of pilgrims crowded on the cobbled roads. They flock to the holy city for Passover, a sea of people with eager faces and hopeful hearts. In the middle of that stream of people, a lonely character riding on the back of a donkey walked in, and a wave of excitement spread like fire. Hosanna! Blessed be the one who comes in the name of God. They cheered, waved palm branches like victory flags. For them, this is the long-awaited King, who will overthrow the rule of Rome and restore the glory of Israel. But the man on the donkey's back, Jesus, did not see the crowd. His gaze passed through the cheers, crossed the ancient city walls, and stopped at a bare hill in the distance, Gogotha. In their cheers, he only heard the sound of hammers hammering into iron nails. In the waving palm branches, he only saw the rough shape of a cross. A deep sadness enveloped him, a burden greater than the Roman Empire. He came not to conquer an earthly kingdom, but to face a war in the soul, a sacrifice that no one in this cheering crowd could understand. The priests and Pharisees stood on the sidelines, their faces frowning with envy and anger. They see their power being challenged, and a dark conspiracy begins to form in their minds. Jesus' anger flared up like a sacred fire when he entered the temple courtyard. The place that should have been a prayer house has turned into a noisy market, full of money changers and pigeon sellers. The sound of bargaining, the sound of animals screaming, and the jingle of coins have offended the sanctity of this place. My Father's house is a house of prayer, he roared, his voice resounding throughout the marble pillars. But you have turned it into a stronghold of thieves. He shouted, his splendid robe flew. The Buddha. Jesus turned to face him, his eyes burning. Destroy this temple, he said in a deep and authoritative voice, and in 3 days I will rebuild it. Caiaphas and the other priests mocked, but they did not understand he was not talking. He was not talking about the stone temple, but about the temple of his body. The confrontation was sparked. The seeds of betrayal have been sown. The attic room is lit by flickering oil lamps, creating shadows dancing on the walls. 12 disciples sat around the table. The air was unusually heavy. The Passover meal, which is usually a joyful occasion, is now tinged with gloom. Jesus took the bread. Jesus took the bread, gave thanks, broke it, and gave it to them. Take it and eat, he said in a sad voice. This is my body betrayed for you. Then he took a cup of wine. This is the blood of the Master, the blood of the new covenant shed for many to be shed, for many to be forgiven. The disciples looked at each other confused and worried. They did not fully understand the meaning of these words, but they felt the urgency and pain in their Master's voice. Then Jesus, the words made the whole room freeze. Truly, I tell you, one of you will betray me. The silence was broken by confused whispers. Master, is it me? Asked one by one, their hearts beating in their chests. John, the beloved disciple, was leaning his head on Jesus' chest, looking up at him with worried eyes. He couldn't imagine such a terrible betrayal. In the midst of the chaos, Peter signaled to John to ask who the traitor was. Jesus answered quietly, just enough for John to hear. That is the one to whom I will dip a piece of bread and give. Then, with a slow, deliberate gesture, he dipped a piece of cake on the plate and gave it to Judas Iscariot. Their eyes met across the table. In the eyes of Jesus there is no condemnation, only an infinite sadness in Judas' eyes. There was a storm of contradictions, greed, disillusionment, and a fleeting ray of regret that was quickly extinguished. As soon as Judas received the piece of bread, Satan entered him. What you have to do, Jesus said. His voice sounded in a tense silence. Do it quickly. No one else at the table understood the meaning of this exchange. They thought that Judas, the purse keeper, was shopping for the holiday. Judas stood up his chair, scratched the floor with a shrill sound. He didn't look at anyone, turned around and disappeared into the darkness of the night. The door slammed behind him. sounding like a death sentence. In the room, Jesus looked at the rest of the disciples. His face was now calm, ready to face what was about to happen. The Garden of Gethsemane was silent. Only the sound of the wind rustling through the old olive foliage. The silver moonlight penetrates the branches and leaves, drawing strange patterns on the ground. Jesus took his 3 closest disciples, Peter, James and John, to a remote place to pray. "My soul is sad to death," he said to them, his voice hoarse with suffering. "Stay here and be alert to the Master." He went a little further, then knelt down. Face down on the ground, a fierce struggle took place in his soul. The burden of the sins of all mankind weighs on his shoulders. The horror of separation from the Father, which he had never experienced, appeared before his eyes like a dark abyss. "Father," he sobbed, "if possible, please leave this cup from me. But not according to your will, but according to your will." His sweat came out, and in an extreme writhing, it became like large drops of blood falling to the ground. He felt completely alone when he returned to his disciples. He saw them sleeping, exhausted by their own sadness. 3 times he prayed, and 3 times he saw them sleeping. The war is over. He accepted his Father's will with a new calm. He woke them up. "Stand up, let's go," he said. "The traitor has come near." The torch flickered through the darkness, and the sound of weapons colliding with each other broke the silence of the garden. Judas led a crowd of Roman soldiers and temple guards. He arranged a sign. "Let's catch people." He approached Jesus, his face trying to be normal. "Hello, teacher," he said, then kissed him on the cheek. It is an act of love and respect, now turned into a tool of deadly betrayal. "Friend," Jesus said softly, but his words carried the weight of a broken heart. "Do you use a kiss to betray man?" Immediately, the soldiers rushed and grabbed Jesus, but Jesus stopped him. "Put the sword in the sheath," he ordered. "All who use the sword will die for the sword." He touched the servant's ear, and it was healed immediately. It is held at night, violating Jewish law. False witnesses are given, but their testimonies contradict each other. Jesus stood silently in the midst of accusations. His silence was more eloquent than any excuse. Caiaphas is getting more and more impatient. He stood up, pointed straight at Jesus. "In the name of the living God, I command you to say, are you the Christ, the Son of God?" He asked. The silence was broken. Jesus raised his head, his eyes looking straight at Caiaphas. "You said it himself," he replied, his voice clear and strong. "Moreover, I tell you, from now on you will see the Son of Man, dwelling at the right hand of the Almighty, and coming in the clouds of heaven." For Caiaphas, it is the blasphemy he is waiting for. He tore his shirt in a dramatic gesture. What more witnesses do we need? What do you think? The sentence has been predetermined. They shouted in unison. At dawn, they took Jesus to the residence of the Roman governor, Pontius Pilate. He interrogated Jesus privately. "Are you the king of the Jews?" he asked, his tone somewhat ironic. Jesus answered, "My kingdom is not of this world." Their conversation is like a game of wisdom. Pilate was increasingly convinced that this man was not a political threat. "So, are you a king?" he asked again. "You himself said that I am the king," Jesus replied. "I was born and came to the world to testify to the truth." Pilate mocked, "What is the truth?" But the priests provoked the crowd. They shouted for his crucifixion. Pilate, in a weak attempt to appease them, whipped Jesus. The Roman soldiers gave him a ring of thorns, clothed him in a crimson robe, and knelt down mocking, "Live the King of the Jews." When Pilate brought Jesus out in front of the crowd again, bloody and bruised, he hoped that their pity would rise. But they just shouted louder, "Crucify him! Nail it!" Pilate, afraid of a riot and wanting to hold on to his power, finally gave in. He washed his hands in front of the crowd, an empty act to deny responsibility. "I am innocent of this person's blood," he declared, and he gave Jesus to them to be crucified. Gogotha Hill stands bare under the strangely darkening sky. Jesus was crucified between two thieves. The crowd mocked, the soldiers split his shirt. From the cross, he looked down at his mother, Mary, and the disciple John, who was standing nearby, their hearts broken. "Madam, this is your child," he said to his mother. Even in extreme pain, he still cared about the people he loved. Darkness covered the ground at noon. It is a supernatural darkness, a veil of the universe before the ongoing terrible event. After many hours of pain, Jesus cried out with a loud voice, "Father, I entrust my soul into your hands." Then he said, "So it's done." At that moment, an earthquake shook the ground. The veil in the temple, separating the holy place from the holy place, was torn from top to bottom. The Roman captain, who witnessed it all, exclaimed in horror and fear, "Truly, this man is the Son of God." The war is over. The sacrifice has been made. In the afternoon, Joseph the Arimathite, a member of the religious council but a secret disciple of Jesus, bravely went to Pilate to ask for his body. Along with Nicodemus, another Pharisee also believed in him. They gently lowered the body from the cross. They treated the body with great respect and love, wrapped it in a clean shroud, along with 100 pounds of firewood and incense that Nicodemus had brought. They put him in a new tomb carved in stone, a tomb that Joseph had prepared for himself. With great effort, they rolled a large rock to block the tomb. All hope seems to have been buried with him in that cold grave. The disciples were dissipated, afraid, and disoriented. The priests and Pharisees persuaded Pilate to seal the tomb and put guards, to ensure that the disciples could not steal the body and spread the news that he had risen. The grave has been sealed. Soldiers stand guard. Night falls, and the silence of death covers it all. But this is not the end. This is just a pause, a pregnant silence, waiting for the dawn of the third day, when the rock will be rolled away and history will change forever.